During one of the lectures, I made the comment when it was asked, how do I know when to use which node? That basically all these materials very often have very repetitive or similar material blocks. For example, because this is wood, I deal with diffuse and a texture and glossy, and then how I really would like the glossy, so the effect of being reflective, be influenced, and then I have also my three-dimensional structure. So color, reflection, and structure. Honestly, that's always the same building block. Question is always how much of detail do you need? So let me start actually in this with a very simple object. So let's say this one should be kind of, let's say, chrome. So and we know chrome is reflective. So the glossy, the diffuse, I simply change to glossy. There. Let's maybe go to the render view there. And yeah, I might have to change the background to black. So I see no black reflections of my environment. And hold on. Maybe I want to turn off the depth of fields right now. 0. Okay. So you see, a metal material, really basic chrome, is pretty much the easiest one. Just make it glossy, because that's pretty much what maybe polished chrome would be. If I want this one to be more grainy, then again, I simply adjust the roughness value. And then you can see that the reflection is still there, but it gets a little bit blurry. And if, for example, this should be something like sandblasted aluminum, which kind of like has more gray tone, then, for example, I can make this one really rough, maybe to this. And there you see the reflection actually starts to spread more over the object. And then I could add a diffuse, make this one gray because aluminum is more grayish, and have a mix shader. And then I can fine tune the color values. So you see, all I'm really focusing on is simply how is the base color, and how is the quality of the reflection, and how is the three-dimensional structure. So, but I said this one should be chrome. Let's go with this, nice and clean. Okay. Now let's take a look at those feet, those gliders. Let's say those should be maybe out of some sort of plastic material. So let's maybe add actually the chrome, and then for all this we add a new material and assign and say maybe glider plastic. Okay, now this is a very small object, and let's say this should be not translucent, so just a normal hard plastic, but it has a little bit of shininess over it. Then I can change the color. Now I need a little bit of reflectivity, because currently this is just a matte surface, so I need my glossy. Then I can really increase the roughness, and I need to overlay the glossy with the diffuse, so mix it and mix shader. Diffuse mixed with glossy. Let's really move in here, and let's take a look how this feels. That view isn't good, so maybe let's do it this way. there. Okay, so let's take a look at how, for example, this reflectivity works. So there it's very clear, so we need this one to be maybe at 0.8 or so, or 0.5. It's a small object, so we won't really see much of it. Maybe this plastic can be a little bit darker. That actually might make the reflection feel better. And maybe let's add a layer weight and facing. I don't use the Fresnel. I simply use the facing, which basically mixes between only see the diffuse, only see the reflective material, but it's not like the factor in percentage. It still applies a little bit the difference between perpendicular and tangent orientation of a face to the camera. So maybe like this, and maybe a little bit bigger there. So there's just a shininess to it, and that's all I want. Okay. So you see a very like diffuse, rough plastic with a shininess over it. That's kind of like a mix you can use. And again, diffuse, glossy, mix shader, and then maybe an additional element how those two materials should be mixed. Okay. So let's maybe take a look at this wood shell. There I have the shell. So maybe in this case here, I really would like to have a high glossy shell. And so what I need to do first is actually, I need to unwrap this. So I'm going to mark actually all those edges. There, and maybe here. There and there. And then Control E, maybe mark seam AAU unwrap. And then actually let's take a look how the UV unwrapping turned out. And before I do this, actually, let's first take a look at what type of wood we would like to use. So then for texture, you can simply type in wood, veneer, and sheets. And you see you can find lots of useful images. Again, try to stay away from photos where you have highlight effects or reflections. You need to have good images which are also big enough. This is maybe not really big. This could be, for example, interesting when it's kind of small. So 600 by 400. This, for example, feels better. So this is also diffuse. And let's save image as desktop, ebony. Okay, save. And I'm also downloading this one. This is definitely too small. Something like this, I really want to have 1000 by 1000 pixels, but let's work with those first. And here, maybe let's start with this one. And there now I can see actually the size of my mesh in relationship to maybe the image. So for wood, again, wood we have a diffuse. For the color, so diffuse, and then image, or here Shift A, texture, image, plug this one in, and then we use this one. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And let's project this one on so I can see it in 3D. And there we see, for example, right now that those faces are actually too small. So I'm going to overlay them and then actually scale all this up. So I see more actually of this texture. Let's see. There you can see it, and we are projecting it over it, and it feels actually too big. So what about we scale this one so we force more material of that texture onto our mesh. Yeah, but then you see now you have very repetitive patterns. So in Photoshop, best would be to take this image and multiply it left and right so I have a bigger surface. So what I do now, instead using this one, let's try this other texture. So this one here and there, and yeah, I have to rotate it. You see like the direction it grows right now. So rotate R90, and then I can scale this a little bit. See, that doesn't look too bad. Okay. Now, you see there's one tiny problem. So this texture actually wraps around the sides in a pretty bad way. So let's see what we can do here. And the main reason is I set the seam at the top part. See what's red, and that doesn't really work well. So Control E, clear seam. And then actually I'm selecting those loops simply as my parts for the loop cut. Okay, Control E, mark seam, and let's try this one again. Okay, and material, L, move this one over, Shift L, there, G, R, and 90, and let's scale this one up. And there, you see now, it works a little bit better. Now we have to do the sides. So this is actually an easy case. Alt click onto this one, S and Y, A, alt click, S and Y. You see now these lines are parallel. L, R and 90. Move it to somewhere. Do the same here. R and 90. And then Shift L, S and nope, S and X, Y. Oh, I have to move my mouse more. There. So see now I'm forcing more of this texture into those sides, and I'm creating my layered material. Okay. It doesn't look too bad. So this basically took care of the diffuse, but now I would like to have a little bit of reflectivity on it. So again, then I can go ahead and say shader, glossy there, and let's say we have a really nice and clean effect. So mix shader and a perfect reflection, and then I need to have oops, wrong one, the Fresnel effect there. Okay, and maybe let's Shift S, and there you can see now that's a really nice, feels like a clean coating. I want again to roughen this up a little bit, 0.1, maybe too much, 0.025. So there's a little bit of unevenness for the reflection. Okay. So let's go for a moment to Fusion and let's double click the bamboo material. And you see here we have certain things we can work with: scale, rotation for the texture, roughness, and reflectance. If I go to advanced, here again you see reflectance and roughness. So the roughness here is pretty much the same as, for example, the roughness for my glossy here, and the reflectance, and that, for example, defines how much something actually is reflective. So you see here basically I decide clear or really blurry reflection, full coded or not coded. So this is kind of like diffuse now. So if I would like to have a little bit of control over not just necessarily how the reflection changes over certain view angles like perpendicular and tangent surfaces, I need to have some sort of slider like here that could adjust how much something is reflective. And in Blender we simply do this with a math node. So let me have these building blocks. So I have glossy mixed with diffuse by the Fresnel, which takes care of kind of like the geometry. And then in here I would like to have a multiplier. So convert and math, plug this one in, multiply, because now I can basically say 0, this one. So mix the diffuse, 0 basically means don't apply any glossy effect. 0.5 is, for example, 50% of this Fresnel effect. 1 means it's a normal reflection without this multiplier. With 3, for example, I make the reflection actually even stronger artificially. So you see, this way I can adjust this. This is actually somewhat similar, kind of like this effect, but now this is fully coded, this is not coded. And the Fresnel gives you the ability to decide from what view angle how much reflectivity you see, and then you can still this effect override with a multiplier. So think about this one pretty much like what the reflectance slider is. Okay. So, and in case, again, because we're dealing with a three-dimensional structure, if I would like to have a little bit of bump mapping to it, then I can use this color image, convert it to RGB, and apply this one to the displacement. But now I would like to control the strength of the displacement, and instead of adjusting this image, I, for example, put in a multiply function, because in there I can say 0 effect or 0, 1. Maybe let's rotate the view a little bit. Actually, we should have a little bit more render material. 0.05. So you just see something happening. This may be still too big. And of course also my result here is not really good, because this texture is a really low res quality texture. But you can see here at the sides actually quite nicely what's happening. So this maybe might not be too bad. Actually, from this view I see the reflection even better. This feels actually way too much. Maybe like this, yeah. Okay, good. And then if I would like to have also a little bit of control over the roughness, now in Fusion, if I go to the roughness here, I have a slider. Let's maybe go to mahogany. There you see now the roughness does not have a value slider. It's actually using an image to basically decide where and what should be reflective or rough. So same thing. I can actually move this one maybe. I make this one to there. Or maybe I simply do it this way. There and there. And then this one I could, if I want to, try to plug in to see how far this maybe works. Maybe turn this one off so I see better that result. So in this case now I would like maybe to see my material this way, and I would like to add a little bit of contrast, some more black and more pure white. So maybe brightness and contrast. See, maybe like this. Okay, let's plug this one in there. And oh, this one goes in there. There we see a little bit more, kind of like where something is reflective and not. There we can see it nicely, kind of like the grooves are kind of grainy, so it's less reflective there. And again, you know, if I would like to adjust this effect, maybe 0.3, ooh, 0.4. See, now I'm starting to clamp this a little bit. Point there. I could even then here in between plug in a multiply, so one same effect like I had based on the image, or increase it, or maybe even lower it, so just a little bit of blurriness, because the image is using grayscale values and black and white to decide what to do. And I could override this either by changing the image, or maybe by simply adjusting the output by another multiply function. And put this one in there and there. Yeah. For example, that could be another very easy way to create like a layered wood material with some sort of change in the reflectivity based on the roughness, and drive everything, the bump mapping, and that through a black and white texture we actually are deriving from the color image. So you see again, diffuse, glossy, and structure, always the same. Okay, so that was for the wood material. Now let's take a look at maybe fabric. Let's name this one there. Okay, so this one we have to unwrap first before we do anything. So you see, like, I marked actually some seams, the red lines in the inside. And let's go to Safari. Let's maybe start with some fabrics. So you have to find again seamless textures. So there we have it, like a Daemon. And you should try to stay away from patterns that will not tile. This one has to be seamless, so perfectly tileable. And everything that's scanned in from a realistic fabric has a tendency to not perfectly tile. Or, for example, like in this case, this pattern for carpet will be too repetitive. So when we tile it, you will see it. What do we have here? You know what? Let's try this one actually. Let's make this one out of some felt material. Okay, so save image as desktop felt. Okay, and there's felt, open, unwrap. Let's make a new material, felt, assign. So L, and move this one down there. RN90, and let's scale this one up. Whoop. Actually, hold on, before I do this, I have to do something different. All those actually I have to fix here right now. So S and Y, Alt click, S and Y. So I'm making a nice line. So the texture below will be perfectly same. And then everything together I'm going to scale. Okay. Now let's add a texture slot, put that into diffuse, and felt or carpet. Let's go to material and take a look at it. Okay. So way too big. So let's see what happens if we scale this one high up. And that starts to look better. So I don't know, it's really difficult then to do all this tiling that way. So in this case then I actually rather do it this way. So I'm going to create myself a texture input, use UV, a mapping node, and then here, for example, I could say, well, make this one 4 times bigger. So this way I can still see the mesh in relationship to my original image. There. Okay. Well, let's see how this one looks. Shift S. Okay. Can maybe look like some sort of felt material. But let's say it should be a high poly or felt material that has some sort of shininess to it, or glossy, or sheen. So what I first really need is maybe a bump effect. So let's go to converter, math, and RGB, there, zip, zip, multiply, there, 0.1. So the effect can actually be could be pretty big. And then I need a little bit of reflectivity. So shader, mix, and then a glossing. You see the steps are so much the same, 0.8. I don't really want much of reflectivity to really get in. So let's see how this one looks like there, which maybe means this is maybe too high, 0.05. Ooh, still too much. Yeah, let's say maybe like this. So felt is a pretty difficult material simply because it is so three-dimensional. still has fibers, etc. And then maybe a layer weight. And now, because this is an image, we can even colorize maybe this felt a little bit. Check this one out. So delete this one, color, mix RGB, maybe mix red and green. Mix these two by a factor, but instead of red or green, use now this black and white image as kind of like a mixing mask. And there you can see you can even colorize material this way. So maybe let's make this one all kind of different blue tones. And my lighting currently isn't the best. That's the reason why this material does actually not look very convincing. But I hope maybe let's go to here and let's try to look for another felt material. Free felt texture. Let's see, and it has to be seamless again. So for example, yeah, this one is not going to work. No wild textures. Oh, this one is nice and big. Oh, that's actually the same texture. Let's try this one. View. Okay, let's save image. Okay, but actually now in the rendering you can start seeing like this gets kind of like a really soft effect, kind of like there's a shininess over it but broken up. So here let's open maybe this one, but use that image, and I think there we have a good example of that. This texture is actually not seamless. There you see it starts tiling. So there I would have to go into Photoshop and maybe make myself a really big texture, 4 by 4000 or so, and then with the stamp copy this texture multiple times. So let's maybe go back to this one. Yeah. Okay. So, for example, let's say we would like to do some sort of, let's say the jeans or so. So I'm making new material. Let's go to Safari. And did I actually download the denim? Let me see. Nope, I did not. And let's go maybe back. And this is probably not seamless. Let's see. But this one looks pretty good. Okay, view and save image as desktop. Yep. Okay, and again, pretty much same deal as before. Let's open this image into the UV editor so I can see the orientation. And actually here I will try to have those rotated a little bit better, maybe like this, there, and then texture, denim, color. And you see, way too big, so texture and mapping, UV, vector to vector, and then I can adjust the size. And this is actually a pretty good texture. You see it doesn't tile as much. So maybe 6 by 6. Yeah. That one is quite nice. Okay, for these renderings, I'm actually going to change my object a little bit so it interacts better with my lights there. Okay, so the denim has a very strong structure, of course, so I need to have a little bit of bump mapping. And again, converter, math, and multiply into the displacement, and RGB to color converter there. For example, I could turn this one off, so I just, for example, see the bump mapping. There it is. Maybe a little bit of shininess again. So diffuse, you see, again, same deal as before. And maybe layer weight there, facing maybe 0.2. Maybe 0.8. Let's make this one more blurry. So you see here with the facing effect, I can take care of maybe this effect a little bit. And to override this even more, I could use something called color ramp, which is basically like a black and white scale. And then even there, maybe clamp this further so you see how I'm actually maybe pushing this backwards and forward. 0.5. Let's see what we can do with that. 0.2. So this way I more or less maybe get at really deep angles, only this reflectivity. Let's turn this one off for a moment. So, okay, maybe tick more there. And 0.25. So there you see, basically just there I get a little bit of reflection on that part of the fabric. Because if, for example, we would make the reflection simply like this, you see that looks like some sort of jeans material with a thick layer of polyurethane or such over it. And this one is too big. Here, 0.1, 0.2, 0.01, maybe. Yeah, and maybe the pattern is still too big, so 8 and 8. And maybe this, oh, this roughness is too small, 0.5. Oh yeah, there, zip, there we see that shininess. Perfect. Okay, I mean, you don't have to use this one, you can use it. And again, all these effects can really be used nicely together. You see now, this is maybe way too much reflectivity, so in this case then if I want to control it, maybe I plug in another multiply so I can adjust then the strength of the reflection there. Okay, see, that's then, for example, how you could work and create something like a jeans or fabric material. Now let's take a look at how we can do leather. So leather has the property of being highly reflective. It is if it is polished leather, and then you have a very noticeable three-dimensional structure to it. So maybe let's see how this one could work. View and save as desktop. Okay. So we have to start again with diffuse. And an image texture. And where is it? There, perforated. Okay. And we have to tile this one. But before we do this, let's take a look at here. And maybe this one, I scale this mesh more the way how it should be, so that actually everything looks kind of proportionally, not distorted. See, when I do it this way, you see the texture is squeezed. And this mesh is now representing more the shell of my object. And the size is not good, so okay, I do my texture mapping and then the mapping vector 555. How does it look? Oh, it doesn't look too bad. Okay, nice. Okay, so I would like this one to have this red color there. And let's go first with the bump. So vector, and I need RGB there, 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 and there, 0.1. And let's see how this one looks. If I zoom in, what I see. What about actually minus if we make this one negative? Okay. So, for example, for the reflectivity, when we put this one over, the black holes cannot be reflective. So no, in that case, we have an extra challenge. So leather is reflective. So here's my glossy. Here's my mix shader there. And let's use the layer weight and there. Let's continue working right now with something that's flat. So polish, sorry. And now you see how those two are mixed. I need something here in between, so that, for example, I can control what also only is reflective. So in this case, a new mix shader in between there, and then this mix factor, I would like to have all these black holes. So what I'm trying to do now is see if maybe I can create a material that maybe allows me to just isolate those black dots there. And so I have to clamp my colors a little bit, and I think the RGB curves can really work here. There. So let's see how this maybe can turn out. And black. Ooh. Oh, that is there. See, they're getting close actually. Yeah. Okay, let's leave this one maybe this way. And for the first test, let's put this black and white new adjusted image into the mix factor, and let's take a look. And there you can see these dots are actually not really reflective, but there's a little bit of texture to it, so that's not really ideal yet. So let's see if maybe if we plug in contrast, if we can make those dots blacker. Oh yeah, there. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, so that's better. So if we make this one maybe 0.2, so it's rough because it's not really clear leather. Yeah. Or actually, we can do it this way. Zip. We just drive the roughness through the black and white image of the leather if we want to. Works as well. Or here, I change this a little bit. And maybe I give a little bit more of the leather fold information back, so that you see now the reflection breaks slightly up also in the grooves, that those areas might be less reflective. Yeah, I think that actually looks pretty nice. So let's see what we can do now to fine-tune and finish this one. So we need a little bit of bumpiness. So plug this one in, plug this one to there. Let's try a look. 0.01. Okay, yeah, that's good. But maybe this is way, way too shiny. So I have taken care of my 3D structure. I have taken care of maybe the glossiness, maybe 0.3 to roughen this up a little bit more, but no, let's keep this at 0.2. I have, for example, my color texture. And here, this. Oh, this one has to go in there. So this is my alpha mask to mix what's reflective and what's not. And now the last thing I would like to do is be able to maybe adjust the strength of my reflectivity. So the Fresnel layer or Fresnel effect, I have to adjust a little bit with another multiply function. So I can dial down maybe this effect to 50% or 0.25. So there's just a little bit, you see, of shininess going over my material. And there we basically are. Also, up close, the stuff always sometimes looks terrible because we're based on textures, but if you zoom further away a little bit, let it cook, let it clean up, and then you quickly will see if this material gets kind of like that visual effect you're looking for. And maybe let's make this one size-wise even bigger. What about 999? Yeah. That was a little bit simply too small. Now this starts to look better. Okay. So I hope actually there you started to see that it is really always the same thing. Structure, something reflective, a color or base texture. How is the reflection? Is it rough or clear? How do we, how much do we see? Is it like glass or so or plastic? Then we need a layer weight or Fresnel. Do I want to control the strength of my reflection? Then I need to multiply in between and have another mix shader. When, for example, I would like only certain parts also to be reflective. And for example, this is pretty much exactly the same setup for example, this wood material. You see 3D structure, those alpha masks, the extra mixer, and then the Fresnel and the multiply. Okay, I hope that this actually gave you a little bit of an understanding of what I meant when I said that all these elements are very much the same. It really is based on what type of visual effect you want, reflectivity, color, texture, 3D structure, and then you simply have to combine these elements and adjust the values according to what you need.